Hey, Sheets, just so you know, every time you're on, anytime it's after 7:55 or 10:55. So we're good to go.
Oh, good.
How's it going? Rohde's there, but we have to get a screen on. Rohde, you want to be on? There we go.
Yeah.
How's it going, fellas? Look, me and Rohde are matching with our beanies. Not matching beanies, but we're both wearing beanies today. It's cold out here.
I'll tell you, one of the things that I've noticed in looking at other content is that I probably am in the maybe 1/10 of 1% of the people that don't wear a hat.
Yeah, probably true. I don't think I've ever seen you wearing a hat.
No, that's that. I guess that's a thing to wear a hat now. I don't know.
Well, look, if you're like me and you have like a widow's peak, I still have the same hair I've had since I was like 20, but I have a widow's peak, so I just anytime I can cover it up on these screens.
No, but everybody else too. I mean, everybody else that's on here on every site, they all wear a hat. I don't know. I gotta see what's. I can't do it though. I don't know.
Yeah, you just can't go full douche like the rest of us.
I don't know. I wouldn't call it douche. I mean, I guess hat looks good on you guys. I guess. I mean,
no. I'm just messing.
This is the first week I had a hat on. I think. I mean, I wear my DK hat once in a while, but
right.
I don't think I've wore it yet this year. So
yeah.
Well, it's good to be back here, guys. I'm playing a little bigger than usual today on a little bit of a hot streak. Won another 10K or so on Friday in NBA. Let's go. The bets on the season now: 15-3-1 for NBA. So we're rolling. We're ready to fire up some NFL. I did a little extra research today, which mostly was meaningless because everything else that we found out since I did the research is mostly gone.
Why? What happened?
Well, no, there's just a lot of different things that are showing up that weren't what I was having. I mean, one, Sam Darnold was looking like the most obvious play on the slate, and now he's not even play. So that was a big one. But even some of the value sort of has changed a little bit. Then you get Robert Woods out, which just makes the Houston receivers in a game I already kind of liked a little bit, or was like entertaining the idea of playing. Now I'm going to be much heavier on the Tank Dells and the Nico Collins and maybe Hayden Hurst as a pivot off of McBride as a run back. Use some Thielen in there, who's the chalk, But I think you can make a nice little game stack with that one. So that was another piece of information just that came out. And Jonathan Taylor, as we early predicted, and when me and Rohde did our show, that he was projected to like 3% ownership, and we're like, that's not going to happen. It's going to steam. So he was one of my. I'll play 40% of him, and now I'm getting a little less of him now that he's going to be a little more owned, just because I wanted to play 40% of a guy who I thought I could have 10 times the field of. But anyway. So let's get into it. Let's talk about position by position who we like, and we'll talk about stacks at the end. But I'm sure we'll lean into it a little bit as we talk about positions. I'm going to start, and we'll go down the order. We'll have Sheets close it out the first one, and then Rohde will start the next one, and Rohde will start running back. Sheets will start wide receivers, and I'm going to start with my quarterback exposures as they currently stand. I have Lamar in 21% of my lineups. He's my highest owned quarterback. On FanDuel, I have Lamar in half of my lineups. Jalen Hurts I have in 20% of my lineups on DraftKings. Jalen Hurts is in half of my lineups on FanDuel. I
don't want to interrupt you, but could you give everybody some context, like what you're playing and stuff? And
I'm playing a ton. Okay, so I'm playing the 2200 on 22-22 on FanDuel for 500K for first. So that's a big tournament. So I'm gonna go with a little more chalky build there. I'm playing the 555 on FanDuel. Those are pretty much my two main lineups. Then I'll just sprinkle out some little other stuff. On DraftKings, I am max entering for the first time this season for 150 of the $20. And I'm playing 5 in the 555, and then the usual sweeps and all single entries and stuff.
Okay.
And I did a better job of organizing my single entry and my stuff this week, where I really tried to harness the little bit slightly more chalk that I liked on those lineups. But those are two is my next highest owned quarterback. I think he's going to be I don't know what under owned means, because everybody always says that, but I think he's going to be lower owned than maybe he should be. So I am going to be heavy on the Tua and the Dolphins stack, and running it back with either Kendrick Bourne and or Ramondre Stevenson. Then the guy who I got onto today, that there's two guys who I got onto that I don't have a ton of, but I've got him in some high buy-in stuff, is CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, just because the stacks are so easy. I did do a little bit of the Jordan Love thing that we talked about with Rohde earlier, but just again, you can sort of build put two huge spend ups somewhere and build a full stack of these games really cheap. So it's just tempting to do. So I like that with the Green Bay side of things and the Minnesota side of things. And the game I wanted to get more of, although I don't want the quarterbacks especially, I want to get more of the Saints and Colts. But other quarterbacks I'm sprinkling in, Brock Purdy I have 6% of, Dak Prescott I got 4% of. Josh Dobbs, I'm probably going to end up with like 6 or 7% because I'm going to probably use him to pivot off some of my Lamar stacks. And I think it's an interesting play on the other side. And then 5% Sam Howell. And then, as I mentioned, little sprinklings of the Mac Jones, Jordan Love, Geno Smith, Kenny Pickett, and Kirk Cousins. But mostly it's going to be Hurts, Jackson, and Tua who decide my week. How about you, Rohde?
Yeah, I like a lot of that you said. Jalen Hurts and Tua, you got about like that 20% mark range. I'm pretty much debating on those guys. Like I'm playing the power sweep at 555 as well. So like I'm debating on like one of those guys for DK. I'm probably not going to play Lamar there, but I know he's a really good player. I know you're really heavy on him. I do like the CJ Stroud call as well. Jordan Love we talked about in the pick show as well. Dak is another one you mentioned at about 4%. I do like him a little bit today as well. And then I do like that. I like that Colts Saints game a lot. You know, I'm getting a lot of pieces in that game. I really like. Probably talk about that running back receiver a little bit more, but I like that game too. So pretty much right on pace with you guys on that, or on Bobby with that.
How about you, Sheets? What do you got?
Yeah, so just for context, I'm playing the 150 in the Millie Maker, and I'm playing 3 in the actually 4 in the higher buy-in Millie Maker. I didn't get into any of those bigger buy-ins on FanDuel. I'm just playing the Millie and and one lineup in the Monster over there, whatever that's called, 555. But I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
but I'm not in the bigger one, and I'm playing the 40 in the Yahoo, which has basically been my best ROI like all season. The other thing I would mention is that I actually inserted kind of like my own opinion a little bit more this week, just kind of like my gut as far as a couple of plays. And I'm going to go through some others, and I'm going to be Xing some guys out that you guys don't like and stuff like that, just kind of like retweaking everything. With respect to the DraftKings, my top-owned quarterback is a guy that you both mentioned, but I have like probably much more of him than a lot of people. I'm much heavier on CJ Stroud than everybody else. I have about 35% of him right now.
Ooh,
on DraftKings.
All right.
And then after that, I have the only guys I have over 10% after that are Lamar and Dak Prescott. And then I should mention Jalen Hurts again because I have a 9%. So CJ Stroud is the big dog for me on DraftKings, followed by Lamar and Dak Prescott. I'll go to the different sites. So on FanDuel, it's more Lamar. I have about 20% Lamar, and then Hurts, Tua, and Stroud, like you mentioned before. I'm getting to like 10% Mahomes on FanDuel as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then for those of you who do play on the Yahoo, I have Lamar currently 67% on Yahoo. I'm going to probably reevaluate that, but that's kind of what I have right now. I'm always going to redo all my lineups after we get off of this, but specifically Yahoo, I don't need that 67% of anybody.
Yeah.
But that's well, to give you an example, that's how good of a play he looks like. You know, that even though I'm like playing 40 and doing other stuff to try to get different, I'm still getting all this Lamar. So that should tell you it's probably a good play. So that's where I'm as far as quarterback goes.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned. I want to point out that I came off of Mahomes when I was doing some of my editing yesterday because the snow looked like it was going to be really bad, and I just want to point out that it doesn't look like that's going to be as much of the case. So I might roll with a little more Mahomes, as Sheets just pointed out there. And I love the Bryce Young. Look, whether it works or not is one thing, but I think it's completely the right type of play, and I think that game is much more interesting than maybe we thought early in the week. And I love that you're going as far overweight as you are on him. I did want to throw out one name that guys we didn't mention. I have a weird feeling that we might be supposed to play a little Joe Burrow here when he's 6K. It worries me. I know it's San Francisco's defense, but it worries me that we're just sort of like ignoring. They're gonna need every bit of him in that game, and I just feel like I could easily see that 450 yards and 3 touchdown game. You know what I mean? Out of Burrow. So he's another one that you might want to consider that we didn't mention. I guess I have 2% of him, but I didn't throw his name out, so I'll just throw that out there now. Rohde, why don't you start us off with the running backs?
Yeah, I like that Burrow. I put like a Burrow lineup in as well. So I have one lineup in and like a $3, but I like that. But one thing about the Mahomes thing, it is cold there still, but Taylor Swift is not at the game if you want to know, Bobby.
Ooh. A little
So
downgrade
Kelsey
for
averages 150 yards when Taylor's been there because he's been monster games, and then when she's not there, it's been 46. So just pointing that out. That's the kind of stuff my wife asked me to research. She's like, "You got to know this kind of stuff. Who the people are hanging out with before the games, who's at the game." Like she tells me I got to deep dive that far. So
there you go.
Yeah, I might have to pause for a minute here. Maybe.
Okay. Why don't we
Okay.
go with some running backs?
Yeah. So my highest owned running back is Breece Hall. He's have him currently at 50%. On DraftKings, I might reduce that, but I don't know. I'm sufficiently overweight to the field, even though he's chalky, that I don't mind that. Mm-hmm. Other guys that I have over 20% are again nothing really off the board. So Pacheco, Kenneth Walker, and Alvin Kamara. I do want to talk about somebody that you had mentioned, the Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, I mean, I would prefer to play him with. Obviously, I would say prefer. Like if Moss were out, then I'd be sure that he'd be getting the work. But then, if that were the case,
he'd be even higher.
He'd be like super chalk. So maybe from GPPs, it's probably maybe better that Moss is playing. Yeah, the other guy who, again, who I don't have yet, but I'm gonna look to do this in the later games. I don't think it's been officially announced yet whether Ford is in the game for Cleveland. They said that he was going to be, doing a game time workout or something like that. And if in fact he is out, I'll go to Kareem Hunt. I mentioned him earlier in the week, and I just don't see a lot of talk about him. I don't know who else they would play except for the Pierre Strong or whatever.
Well, no, Jerome Ford's supposed to play.
Oh, okay. That said he was going to go through a pregame workout to see. Okay.
Yeah. The first thing was intends on playing, then it was going through the pregame workout. So where that stands, I don't know. I would lean slightly more. So I basically put in, you put in Hunt, you could just swap these guys out for each other, basically. So I put Ford into some laps with the intention of seeing if we can get information.
Yeah. The other thing about that is again it's a good idea to know who these later game guys are. So like Pacheco, for example, like if you're getting, kind of like behind the 8 ball in the early games, and you have Pacheco, who's going to be, he's going to get some ownership or whatever. You maybe swap him to your favorite Cleveland guy
right.
At the end. Aside from those guys, I mean, again, I mentioned Hall, Pacheco, Kamara, and I don't have anybody else kind of over 10%. So I probably should just not even talk about them.
Okay. All right. I'll go through this since Rohde's got kids stuff going on. I also have Breece Hall almost 50%. I'm a little concerned, I guess, just because I have so much of them and I'm playing a lot of buy-ins, but there's a lot of guys in the price range that I like. I actually have Jonathan Taylor as my second highest owned running back right now, just barely ahead of Tony Pollard. I have too much Joe Mixon, but it has a lot to do with sort of getting interest in that game, and I don't like this Joe Mixon chalk stuff, so I'm probably gonna whittle that down a little bit. I have some Pacheco, but I have a little more DeAndre Swift, Brian Robinson. I'm going for the Aaron Jones play a little bit, and then Ramondre Stevenson and Alvin Kamara. And I was able to get McCaffrey into about 10% of my lineups because of some of these other stacks that I'm using. So those are the guys I'm most heavy on. How about you? Go ahead, Sheets.
Oh, I was gonna finish up talking about FanDuel and Yahoo before I forget.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
So on FanDuel and Yahoo, I'm getting more Tony Pollard, who you mentioned. The one guy I'm getting on FanDuel for some reason more than the other sites, I guess it's because of, I don't know why it's working out this way, but in getting the Arizona guy, the DeMarcado, more on FanDuel than anything. I have like a full 20% of him on FanDuel, so I just figured I would mention that.
Yeah, I guess I have 10% of him on DraftKings. I should have thrown that out there, but I actually don't see a major gap between the running backs between sites to me today. I see it as basically the same for me. But how about you, Rohde?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to hear a lot. My wife is out of town, so I have the kids, and they interrupted me. So Kamara is a guy I got a lot of, Breece Hall, a lot of Jonathan Taylor. I do like a lot. I like the Indy New Saints game a little bit. I talked about, one really out of the park flyer was Aaron Jones, a little bit talked up.
I mentioned him
in Green Bay. Okay. Sorry. I didn't need to hear.
No, I like that though. I like that.
I like that Amari Amari guy again for the Arizona at 4,800. I think it was a little bit of him in there. And pretty much I'm just kind of loading up these guys. A lot of Kamara, a lot of Hall. Maybe a little bit of Pierce in that Houston game a little bit. We talked. You guys really like the passing attack. I know, single like other guys been taking his workload, but I feel like he's still priced down and he can get in the box.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, same guys that you guys are probably talking about, and then those are some of my highest guys. So
Nice.
What do you think, Bobby? What do you think of the Miami running back situation? Mostert says he's going to play, but he wasn't a full participant at practice. Do you like him at all in a game where they rate to score a lot of points? Would you take a shot at Jeff Wilson at no ownership this week, just in case, or anything from the Miami running backs?
So I have 4% of Mostert right now, and
Yeah.
I think there's too many good value running backs and too many good value receivers for me to go take that shot. If I did, it would obviously be on Wilson. But I do think Mostert, and most of my Mostert is like, I have, again, I have him in the 3% of my lineups that had Mac Jones as a quarterback. You know what I mean? As a running back. But I don't mind the idea of getting some Mostert. And actually, I have all that Tua. I might include Mostert into a couple of my Tua stacks because we've seen Tua have a bunch of great games where Mostert's had big games as well. So I'm good with that.
I would just say, in Millie Maker stuff that, this game does have a really, high spread. And it just seems to me that if they are a big favorite and they do have a big lead, and again, Mostert is not 100%, it just seems like it could be one of those days where Jeff Wilson takes all the fourth quarter,
My only point about that is they won't run the ball if they're not able to run the ball. They'll if anybody's able to stop that, you stop that. We know this about them. They'll pile it on, and they pile it on partly with the running game, but a lot of those were pass catching plays. So I actually think that even with the big spread, and again, maybe we see New England play well for the second week in a row. And even if they don't, I still think the Dolphins try to put the hammer on them. They've been beaten down by this New England team for the last 25 years. I think they're going to take the advantage when they can,
Yeah, I know. I just mean because Mostert's not 100%, they'd probably they'd be less inclined to run him through the ground. I don't know.
That's a fair point. So that's a good argument, I guess, for even not playing much Mostert.
Well, that would be my argument for taking a Wilson shot. That's
for the Wilson flyer, right? I understand that. All right, I don't understand this, but okay. You know what? Actually, this is Sheets' turn to start with the wide receivers.
Okay, boy, that's quite the intro.
Well, I don't understand how I have 45% Cooper Kupp because I hand built almost all my lineups, and he was in like one of my hand builds, and sometimes in 25% of my lineups. I guess.
So this is going to come as no surprise, but considering that I have 35% CJ Stroud. So these are my top 4 own wide receivers. Everybody could all say them at once. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Adam Thielen, and Noah Brown.
Brown.
Yeah. So all the Houston wide receivers and the main Carolina run back are my top owned receivers across the board. On DraftKings. Aside from that, guys, I have over 15% of Josh Downs again. Kind of a cheat code at that price, I think. AJ Brown, him again. Cooper Kupp, as you mentioned. Kendrick Bourne, you mentioned a couple of times. CeeDee Lamb. I'm only going to go for 15%, guys. I have more of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. I'm under, I guess, on the Zay Flowers. I know Zay Flowers is going to get a lot of ownership, but again, because I'm so heavy on the Stroud, that means I'm less on Lamar on DraftKings, which means I'm going to be less on Zay Flowers.
That makes sense. All right, I'll go, and then we have Rohde close it out. So it's interesting for me with my builds because my highest, in terms of entry fees, my highest owned players are Nico Collins, Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, DeAndre Hopkins. I really like DeAndre Hopkins this week. I think this is the show me week, and this is we're going to try and trade you. We're going to let you go out there and try and go out of our way to target you in a season that's sort of being lost. So in terms of buy-ins, those are my 4 highest. George Pickens, Marquise Brown, those would be my and Addison would be my next. In terms of actual draft percentage, the number of lineups I have guys in, because I scripted, Cooper Kupp is in 25% of my lineups. I have a lot of Brandon Ayuk, and I have a lot of Kendrick Bourne, Christian Watson, And another guy I'm way over on is Jalen Waddle. He's had really good games against New England in the past when they try to do everything they can to stop Hill. So I like the Jalen Waddle idea. I also will get some Tyreek Hill. And my other thing is I'm going to be pairing a little more Devontae, I think, with – I think A.J. Brown has a big day today, but I also want to play Devontae just because of the ownership gap. And I expect Devontae to finally break out of his little slumber pretty soon. So hopefully it'll be today for me. How about you, Rohde, at wide receiver?
Yeah, you guys mentioned a lot of really good names today. Receiver. I definitely like Downs. He's like been a guy I'm getting a lot of. Definitely getting a lot of Zay Flowers. Waddle's a guy that I'm hoping he has a big game. You know, I've been playing him a little bit. You know, it's always Hill. I think Waddle. I know everyone talking about AJ Brown a lot on the stuff this week as well. So I'm going to go back to Devontae Smith at 6,700 as well on DK. So a couple of the guys I'm going to take shots back on again. Rashid, what's his name? Shaheed or whatever at 3,900. I think Michael Thomas officially out too, right?
He was questionable last I looked, unless he was announced out in the last few minutes.
I don't know. I see a couple projection sources not projecting him, so I don't know.
I think there's a lot of speculation that he's going.
Yeah, he's still questionable, but I think a lot of people are thinking he's not playing. I guess.
I think you're probably right.
Shaheed at 3,900 is a good price if Thomas is out for sure. I like that a lot. A couple other guys, I like the couple of I'm kind of getting in a little Dak stack with a little Cooper Cobb, so run back, or I like that a little bit. Christian Kirk at 5,900, and Ridley's there too. At 5,800. Some of those guys are so cheap. I feel like I know Trevor Lawrence is questionable and stuff, or has some issues, but I mean one of those guys has got to do something at that price tag. Terry McLaurin in the run back with my Eagles. I like him at 5,300. I like him, and then Nico and Tank Dell, getting some of that in that same Houston game. So Kendrick Bourne, you mentioned 4,700. So yeah, a lot of those same guys. If you want a couple cheap guys, you could do Michael Gallup at 3,400. Jane Reed at 3,700.
Who's 3,700?
Jawan Jennings at 3,800.
I like Jennings, but who did you say at 3,700, Rohde?
Just Reed. I know Watson. I like Watson at 5,100, but Reed's got plays in the offense, some red zone stuff that they're looking at him too, so he gets touched on upside. Just some cheap pieces that you can play. I know. Sheets mentioned the Noah Brown play at 3K and for the Houston play as well, so that's a flat 3K. So. Yeah, just some cheap guys you can mix in there, and receivers pretty loaded. It's really a tough day today. A lot of good options are everywhere, and so really.
Yeah, we have the full slate finally, no buys, and
13 games, whatever. It's a lot of stuff to do. So it's going to be spread out more than you think. So if something's kind of higher owned, don't get too scared off. It's my hot take of the day. So.
Let me add one more couple of things. Again, I forgot to do FanDuel and Yahoo, but. On FanDuel, my highest owned on FanDuel is CeeDee Lamb because I have more Prescott over there. And on Yahoo, for those of you who play, obviously, I already mentioned I have 67% Lamar, so you can figure out who my top one receiver is over there. The other thing is let's not sell short what Rohde was just talking about Michael Thomas maybe being out. I mean, if that's the case, that Shaheed is like a legit good play, and Olavi is like legit good play. He probably was already. So I'm gonna take another look at the projections if and when Thomas gets ruled out, because you get. I mean, I know a lot of people. That's like the hipster stack game, the Indianapolis Saints game. And
though, every Indianapolis game in Indy seems to go nuts.
I know, and so if that's the case, I mean, I definitely have to take another look at it because, especially if Michael Thomas is out, you just get more usage out of everybody. Not that Michael Thomas has been like amazing or anything, but it's still
he gets a lot of targets.
Yeah, he's still the target man. So I definitely need to take another look at that, and also it obviously helps Kamara as well. So yeah, maybe all those Saints are going to get bumped. Well, they are, but I want to see how much. Now is that so? I'll take a look. What the last thing it said was just questionable.
What's that?
Yeah, I haven't seen any new update today on the Michael
Yeah, different
Thomas.
sites are planning him out. Some sites will still have him in, and they lowered. And they're doing this sort of hedge thing with his projection. So it's going to.
It's a 1:00 game. We'll have it. I mean,
we'll have it, but I agree with you, Sheets. And the projections, people might be building before the projections catch up.
Yeah,
he's already in a decent play anyway.
Yeah,
Olave becomes a really good play. I
Yeah.
kind of am with that idea of getting some of that. I'd like to get more of that. I don't want to play Derek Carr. I just want to play maybe you play the two receivers. Maybe you throw the third receiver, Taysom Hill, and maybe he's the one throwing them the touchdown passes use him as the tight end. There's a little creative millionaire maker winner that's going to work one time out of a million. But that's kind of interesting. All right. Tight ends, Rohde, since you weren't able to start before, do you want to start off with tight end?
Yeah, I can start off with tight ends. Yeah, I mentioned that tip about Travis Kelce. He's a little pricey today. But yeah, it's cold there. It's a little snow, so you might want to pay down, which we always like to do. We got Dallas Goedert at 4,600. He's one of the guys I really like. Mark Andrews, even in that game, that's really, he's not getting a lot of ownership at 6,400. I mean, he smashed last week. There's no reason he can't again today. Kittle at 5,400 with no Debo in that game. He gets a lot of dump off passes. I really like that. Jake Ferguson, a DAC stack with the Dallas Cowboys. The Trey McBride or guy at 2,800. He's the cheap guy. Arizona is going to be super chalky. No Ertz there, getting some volume. Young prospect that people like. Dalton Schultz in that Houston game at 3,900. I really like as well in the stacks with C.J. Stroud. Connor Hayward, another cheap one that you can play at 2,600 for the pit. Yeah, I mean, those are my main guys. Like I did talk about Waller at 5,200 this week. I've heard a little bit of buzz about this guy again this week. I know he's got because people are talking about his hamstring or whatever. So he's only got one good hamstring. So, there's the case, but he's getting a lot of volume. So usage. So at that I might have a few of him. And that's pretty much about it. I mean, and then Luke Musgrave at 3,500 a little bit as well. So that's about it for me.
Real quickly to support a little bit of your Waller take, if there is one. I mean, it's going to be cold, rainy, and Tyrod Taylor throws the ball to the tight end a lot more often than Daniel Jones does. So just historically, going back since the beginning of his career, so that makes the Waller thing look a little better. I actually like Jalen Hyatt. I forgot to mention him as receiver as a play in that game too at 31.
Gotcha.
But I like that. How about you, Sheets, as far as tight end goes?
Okay, so Trey McBride is the chalky cheapo of the week. He was like kind of the chalky spec play of the week last time, but then Ertz played, I think.
Right.
I think with Ertz out, I think this is a pretty damn good spot.
Yep.
I don't know if these are the types of plays you want to, play as big chalk, but it's kind of certainly in those Baltimore stacks. I mean, it's probably a good play. So he's my highest own right now at 22%. And then I'm 17% of Jake Ferguson, who was mentioned. And then should come as no surprise, 15% Dalton Schultz from Houston, coming from those Houston stacks. And then the other guy above 15% is Evan Ingram. So those are my top four: McBride, Ferguson, Schultz, and Evan Ingram.
Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna say that I have Trey McBride as my highest owned tight end. If you want to pivot, also Sheets, and you want to include that other game, even if you're playing the Houston side of it, maybe a run back, consider Hayden Hurst, even though he hasn't done it ever. But it's a guy who you could see getting some targets in this matchup. I like so my order, I have McBride, Kelce, Ferguson, Goddard. But in terms of and then Andrews, and then in terms of buy-in, I have it McBride, Goddard, then Andrews, then Kelce, then Kittle. That's pretty much my main tight ends for the week. We'll talk about some stacks and stuff after once we get to the end of this here. And I guess I'm starting off with defense. So I did initially I was getting like 40% of two defenses, and now I've really spread it out quite a bit. I like the Falcons. I like the Packers. These are my highest owned, and the Bengals because of the price. I did throw some Broncos in there just because the flat 2K I needed in a couple lineups. And it's not like you want to try and pick on Mahomes, but maybe buying into, hey, maybe the weather is a little bit worse or just one play at 2K, maybe that's good enough. But the Jaguars and the Vikings and the Steelers would be pretty much make up the bulk of my defenses. How about you, Rohde, then Sheets?
Yeah, for defenses, Yeah, I don't mind those ones you mentioned. I did use the Broncos for a flat 2K as well. I'm getting a lot of the Jaguars at 2,800. I like that price, a little under the Falcons that are a little bit more chalky, I think. Unless the ownership came up on the Jaguars recently.
Mm.
Sorry.
No, I don't think it did.
Yeah, so I like the Jaguars a little bit. I'm getting a little bit of Vikings too. I see they're a little bit more chalky. Bengals a little bit at 2,200. I fell right to them. I mean, I don't like it, but I play a lot. I just mixing up these cheap defenses is all I'm doing. Um, don't really have a lot of high defenses. I played the Eagles in one, just because of the sacks that
Mhm.
Howell's getting. Um, so I mix that up a little bit. And Seahawks are getting a lot of chalk, but I haven't really got to them at 3,400. I think they're a little over my price, so for that spot. So kind of on those cheap ones, and then maybe an Eagles. So
Yeah, it's interesting. The Eagles, I played the Eagles. Look, I do this thing that no one likes to do, and everybody thinks it's bad correlation. I totally disagree. I have some Sam Howell stacks, and I actually have him like double stack, and then I'm running it back, but I'm running it back with just one Philly player and then trying to use the Philly defense as my other player, because this could be one of those games you see like 3 picks, but 350 yards, to 2 receivers and 3 touchdowns for Howell. I can see that kind of thing happening. It's actually not that different than what he did the last time they played. And maybe one of those picks goes for a pick 6. So that's my thinking. Mike Thomas is officially in, by the way. So that takes a little bit of my shine off of the Shaheed Olave. I still think Shaheed is fine to play. I'm just not going to probably end up getting too much Olave. Zach Moss is in. Thanks so much, MJ, for updating. We figured the Moss thing. Before I go into what, I always like to think about what I want to get more.
Am I not allowed to give defensive takes anymore? Or is that?
Oh, I'm so sorry, because I always do this to you on the last ones.
That's like a real important thing is my defensive.
You have the least interest in talking about defenses.
Yeah, so just my normal disclaimer is that I don't think you should play more than 20% of a defense in MME. But the guys that I do have the most of are the chalkiest ones that you guys have mentioned. I do have a full 20% of the Seattle defense, and then my next highest own is a 15% Falcons. I don't think that the Falcons are a great GPP defense this week, though. I'm getting them anyway. I'm not going to do anything about it. I just don't think you're going to see much variance out of the Tennessee offense this week. I just don't see this. I mean, Atlanta can hold it to 10 points or something like that, but I don't think they're going to let either of those guys just throw the ball enough to get that stuff going on. And so I'm gonna play a full 13% of them, and they're probably really, really good in big buy and stuff. But I kind of like the fact that Seattle's 3,400. Listen, they're projected to be high owned, but maybe they won't be. Just because people it makes sense to pay down at defense if you want to know the truth. I mean, guys, the Falcons, Broncos. I don't know if anybody mentioned the Commanders, but I think the Commanders are reasonable at 2,300. And you could also play the Titans on the other side of that Atlanta game, and they're over 3K. So those are the guys. Let me just again before I forget, look back at FanDuel, see if there's any real difference there. Defense on FanDuel actually looks like my top owned defense on FanDuel is a very cautious San Francisco defense. Cautious in that it's not by that much.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Yahoo, actually Broncos would be my highest owned by a little bit. But that's pretty much all I got.
Nice. I'm going to do quickly just some things that I just from talking throughout the show that I'm going to make some changes on. I think I'm going to get some more Mahomes. I'm going to get some Noah Brown, which I wasn't really going for as much before. I was more using the other receivers. I'm going to get some Dalton Schultz, as Sheets mentioned. It's sort of I want to get more of that game. The other guys who you guys mentioned, I have a lot of Terry McLaurin, but I think I want even more. And Dotson. And just keep in mind, we're still waiting on Curtis Samuel news. That's another really big piece of information, because if Curtis Samuel's out, all of a sudden Dotson and McLaurin and for that matter, Logan Thomas are all much, much better plays. I also want to get some more of the Juwan Jennings, and initially one of my favorite plays of the week, and then I sort of pivoted off. I like, again, same thing with Kittle. Kyle Pitts is one we didn't really talk about, but I want to get some more of him. Dalton Schultz and Evan Ingram. I can see this week being a good 3 running back week. I think in cash, you're probably playing 3 running backs. I also think double tight end is kind of interesting this week. But I'm going to go with my bold take of the week is that 2 of the players 5,500 to 6K are going to be in the millionaire winning lineup, and they are going to be Nico Collins, which is the chalky one, and then there's going to be DeAndre Hopkins is my other one. That's my bold call.
Wait, Bobby, what were those guys' names? I could.
Nico Collins and DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay.
Sheets. Anything to add? Anything game stack wise you want to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just reiterate that I like Houston for the 5th time. I really like them, and it's funny. One guy that I guess sort of not obviously, but notably left off of my discussion at the positions, considering I'm playing all this Houston, is a lack of Dameon Pierce. I just feel is that they just don't like him. You know what I mean? I mean Devin Singletary, I think outsnapped him. You know what I mean? Like I just that's gonna be probably the death of me. Is like Houston puts up 38 points and it's like 3, Dameon Pierce touchdowns or something. I mean, it's certainly possible. It's so that's one thing. As far as a hot take, I guess I'm gonna stay on brand and say, I don't know, Noah Brown gets 2 touchdowns and wins all the cheese or something.
There you go. This is a hot take. I like that. How about you, Rohde? Any final thoughts or hot takes before you take us out of here?
Oh man, this is a tough week for hot takes.
We won't go out of here yet, though. Don't take us out yet, but just give us any.
Yeah, this is a tough week for hot takes. I like so many guys this week. It's tough. I think, my guy probably this week's Josh Downs at 4,800. He's in the winning lineup. Just so cheap. I like that game a lot. I like Kamara and Downs correlation a lot this week, and I'm gonna have that in a lot of my lineups. So,
yep, I like that.
I had an announcement also before Rohde takes us out, if you wouldn't mind. I posted this in the Discord as well. So starting at 6:30 today, I'm gonna go live, and this is what my plan is. So the NBA slate starts at 7:00. I'm going to go over the NBA slate at 6:30 and then kind of lead into like live sweating the end of the NFL main slate, which ends sometime between 7 and 7:30. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, I was joking, but whatever. Hopefully you guys are both kind of near the top of stuff and we can kind of all sweat and root, and at the very least I can look at the lobbies and see what's going on there. And then just kind of like blend right into the showdown slate for tonight. That's kind of the plan. You can join me for as little or as much of it as you want, but I'm going to be starting at 6:30.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna. I'll definitely consider it. I'm gonna try and see if I can make some of that happen at least.
Yeah.
I thought for a second I was like, "There's no MLB game today. Is he going to talk about the MLB game?"
No, there's not.
You can't win, Chief. That means you can't win the MLB slate. It means you have to win the football slate.
I cannot win the MLB slate. I could win that 5 p.m. 3-game hockey slate though.
That seems like
I'm not going live for that, by the way.
Which is actually like a little
which is why I'm going to win it. By the way.
Exactly. All right. Well, if there's no QQs left, guys, we appreciate everything. Please hit the like button before you get out of here. I'll be in premium Discord talking over things and posting my exposures before, probably in the next 45 minutes as I get a few things figured out. Rohde, say what your final thoughts are and then get us out of here.
Yeah, good luck, guys, on today's big slate. And as always, let's get it.
Let's get it.
Let's get it.